Welcome everyone and to our Montessori approach to social and emotional learning. I'm Gemma, for those of you who are seeing me for the first time. And so before we start, we'll just do our welcome to country and oops, I'll just move the... So we acknowledge the traditional owners of the country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respect to their elders past, present and emerging. So a little bit about me for those who are joining this workshop for the first time. I am a trained Montessori educator in both 0 to 3 years and 3 to 6. I currently work as an educational leader at a Montessori childcare centre, and I train and lecture in Montessori as well. So I'm very passionate about Montessori. Lecture lots of different webinars and all-day workshops as well. So this is a very important and great. I was just talking to Karthik earlier saying that I love this topic. It's probably one of the most talked about topics, that's social emotional development in classrooms. So let's start from the foundations of social emotional learning, and then we're going to talk about how Maria Montessori set up her environment that encouraged social emotional learning as well. So let's go and have a look at the foundations of social emotional learning from a Montessori perspective. So this is one of Maria Montessori's quotes. All the social and moral habits that shape a man's personality, she used man in those days, but he, she, but she used he quite a bit in her quotes, are formed during infancy in virtue of that mysterious mental power that psychologists have called the mem. So Maria Montessori, the word mem actually comes from a Greek meaning memory. So Maria Montessori talked about this as the child's memory, their unconscious learning. So you may have heard me talking about the absorbent mind. So this is what Maria Montessori is talking about. So all the social and emotional habits of the child's personality are formed during infancy. It's like an imprinting on the mind. So this 0 to 3 is the foundation for this, and then we build upon in all the other age groups as well. But Maria Montessori called this the mem, and it was meaning memory. This is a child's memory. It's all unconscious, but all the social and emotional habits that the child is taking from their environment is developed in infancy. Yeah. So we'll go on and talk a little bit about some of these points. So it begins at birth through secure attachments. So the early attachments that the child has with their main caregivers, their mothers and their fathers. These early attachments are recorded and shape the child's emotional and social development. And this first secure relationship sets the foundation for all future learning. This is the time where the child develops trust in the world, that they can have that secure attachment, and then they can go out into the world and come back to that secure attachment. I'm not sure if many people have heard of, sometimes lots of OTs talk about a circle of security. That's often talked about that, and that's about supporting the child, having that secure attachment, and the child going out into the world, but then coming back. And you often see that around 8 or 9 months, the child who is confident when in the attachment they have, especially when their parents are there, they'll go out and explore the materials, and then they'll come back and check, and then they go off and explore. So they still need that. Yep, great, Jay. You know a lot about the circle of security. Yep, excellent. They still need to check in. That's really, really important, that checking in and then going out. So this is the secure attachment begins at birth, and having consistent and sensitive consistent interactions are really, really important. Having those so that when the child comes back, they know that the educator is going to be there for them and it's consistent. They don't turn around one day, they're not, you know, it's not that dramatic, but it's the consistency of the attachments that the children have. So for example, you know, one day if their educator is always up and down, that is very inconsistent for the child. That's not meaning that you can't have those bad days, you know, because we're all humans and having those different emotions, but consistency in those attachments is really important as well. And that other quote, emotional regulation develops through co-regulation. And that's young children are not born with that ability to regulate their own emotions. So they need to do this with the adults, with the educators. Maria Montessori was very, very, she actually observed the birth of, in her times, what was happening in the birth. And she said that the child cannot be taken away from their mother. This is a critical time. She calls the birth a crisis period. And in that crisis period, the child needs to stay with their mother. Yeah. And they need to co-regulate with their mother. So, and trust and connection are the basis for independence. If the child trusts and has that connection, then we'll see them go out into the world and that sets up for independence because they know that those secure attachments are there and they're strong. So we'll go on, but that's just the foundation of the learning, especially in 0 to 3, 0 to 6, and the next slide that we're going to talk about here. Children between 0 to 6 are in a sensitive period for order and independence, and they crave predictability and order. So having external order actually helps them have internal order inside. They feel safe. They feel safe that their familiar routines are going to happen every day. So the baby being fed maybe in the same spot, or a child having their meal times in the same spot. They love that consistency. They love familiarity, predictable routines. So in this little photo that I have found, it's actually my daughter. She's currently nearly 6, she's 16 and a bit. And this is her at mealtime. She was 8 months old. This little table and chair was actually just in the middle of our kitchen. And every day she would eat her meals there. So it was predictable. Children love to be able to predict what's going to happen next. And they're in that sensitive period for this. They love predictability. So every day I would say it's mealtime. She knew that was the table where she was going to eat her food. And you will see that she can independently eat her food. So she's striving for independence. They love independence when they can feel internally good because they're doing things for themselves. That supports that social and emotional development. We all feel good when we can do things for ourselves. So order supports emotional stability, and independence reduces frustration. So here she was able to independently feed herself. She couldn't use a fork, but she could use her hands. So she was having that sense of achievement that she could feed herself, and that every day, that predictable routine, I get fed here. So there's this calmness that will help her as well. Other examples are following the same bedtime and also using consistent language that you use, and children start to pick up, and their brain starts to feel calm because that they can predict what's going to happen. Their world feels safe. Yeah. So Maria Montessori knew about this. She knew about this sensitive period. So she set up her environment to support the child's social and emotional learning. She knew that for children to feel safe and for their intellectual development to flourish, they first had to feel safe. And those who are educators today know that when new children come into your space, you cannot then start giving them lessons. They have to feel connection. They have to feel safe and connected with the educators in their space and with the routines of the space. So that needs to be set up first before then we can extend into all the other curriculum areas. If a child does not feel safe to explore the environment, then they are not going to take in. They're not going to take in that ability to absorb. So we're going to talk next about how the Montessori classroom is set up to support children's social and emotional development. So Maria Montessori was a scientist. She was such a keen observer, and she knew that to support the child's social and emotional development, she had to set up and have certain conditions for this to happen. So the next slide that we're going to talk about is the Montessori environment and and emotional security. So as we know, children of this young age, especially in that 0 to 6, they love a calm, ordered and beautiful environment, and it helps them feel emotionally safe. They know when they come in that meal time's going to be in that spot. The cups are always going to be in that spot. When I go to this space, I'm going to see the practical life activities, or I'm going to see the sensorial materials. They have a familiar, they can predict, and so their brain feels safe. Yeah. So that next point that I'm talking about here, predictable routines, are very important for child's emotional security, and freedom within limits. So that is a really, really important part, because a child is not free to do what they want. They are free to develop themselves, but they are not free to destroy the environment or to hurt other children or to hurt themselves. Yeah. So that that notion of freedom in a Montessori classroom is not something that is just given. The child also has to develop certain skills to be free. Yeah. So the child's not free to feed themselves if they haven't developed their hand. So freedom within limits is a very misconceived idea in Montessori, but the limits and setting limits is really, really crucial. It's not free to just do whatever you like. And Marie Montessori said, if we just, say to the child, oh, you can do whatever you like, just go run in the field and I won't give you any lessons and I won't set any boundaries. And she actually calls that abandonment. Yeah. So we need to have a balance, definitely. And later on, we're going to be actually talking about, we're going to look at about 4 or 5 different examples. And I will go through how you actually would handle that from a Montessori view, how we connect the children to the environment, and the type of language we would use with them as well. And children can gain confidence as they make choices and experience success in daily life. So Marie Montessori gives children choices all the time in the space. They are free to choose whether they want to do practical life activities first and then choose something from sensorial. They make choices about whether they want to sit at a table or sit on the floor. If they want to work outside on the veranda or garden, if you have that, or they want to work inside. So choices makes children feel empowered, and then they feel emotionally safe. They feel, wow, I have choices in my life, I'm in control. So it makes them feel like they're in control. But it's not choices to do whatever they like. So the choices have limits on them as well. That's freedom with limits. Yeah. So it's about giving children choices that are appropriate for their age group, of course. So we wouldn't say to a baby, oh, you can choose to sleep at 2 o'clock at night if you. I'm not talking about a newborn, but I'm saying, oh, we don't give children that extreme, like, oh, you can just go to sleep anytime you like. Yeah. Of course, we want them to follow their own. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Jay. You like that point? Yeah. It's very, very important. Choices and freedom, very important, because all of us here love to have choices in our own lives. So children also really, really love that as well. Thank you for actually putting in comments in the chat box. That's great, because I really love interactive presentations. So yeah, if you want to ask any questions throughout the presentation, just let me know and I'll answer them in the chat box as well. Okay, let's go on. And you'll see in the environment as well, in this picture here, that it's uncluttered. And when when the environment is uncluttered, the child can focus. Yeah, they can focus their attention on things and their mind is not distracted by things hanging from the ceiling or bright colours. You'll see that in Montessori, there's normally very neutral colours. Yeah, and that's so that the child can concentrate and have order in their brain as well. And that brings a sense of calmness to the child. So let's go on. So another beautiful feature of a Montessori environment is mixed age classrooms. So Marie Montessori observed that when children are together in what they would happen in society, where they're not spread through just 2-year-olds together or just 3-year-olds together, they actually help each other. And they help at a level that is much, much greater and actually more helpful than an adult would do. So a 4-year-old will help, say a 4-year-old would help, say a 3-year-old at a level that wasn't doing too much, compared to an adult may actually overhelp and give too much help. A 4-year-old knows how to help. That is just enough. Yeah. So going to our points here, older children model language and social behaviours for younger peers. So they model the skills because they are more developed in those skills. So the younger children can actually watch and think, oh, wow, I want to be like that. I want to learn how to greet people like that. Yeah. I want to learn to do big things like that person. So if you think about in a 3 to 6 classroom, 3 years is huge, but a 3-year-old looks up to a 6-year-old and they think, wow, I want to try and do those behaviours as well. Yeah, but it's also amazing for the older child. They get to be in a position of leadership. So they develop those skills of patience and empathy very, very young. They learn to get down into another person's and feel what they feel. Yeah, and they also learn to be patient with a younger child when they're learning to do something. Yeah. So they're really, really important. That is why Montessori classrooms are multi-age, because it's a community. It's a hive of what you would see in society. Yeah. So when you go out into the world, it's not just one age group. It's all mixed age groups working together and supporting and helping each other. So Marie Montessori, through her observations, she saw the way that older children worked with younger children and how younger children looked up and wanted to imitate these behaviours. So she used these in her classroom because she saw the benefits of having this. I know sometimes in long day cares that can sometimes be tricky, and because most children go to school sometimes between 4.5 to 5, we don't get to see that whole age group. But having that 3-year gap, or at least a 2-year gap, is really beneficial because it brings around a community where everyone is helping each other. So that's the importance of why Marie Montessori did mixed age classrooms. So then the younger children can look up to the older children and they don't need to rely so much on the adults. Yeah. Marie Montessori also introduced, what was that? Sorry, Jay, I'll just have a look at your question. Yeah. Oh, you definitely, so you worked in a smaller centre a few years ago where we could allow this. Great, excellent. Yeah. Yeah, I was fortunate to work in a many, many years ago before prep came in. I worked in a 3 to 6 classroom, and the way that the older children were with the younger children, it was just beautiful. I would have some of the older children teaching the younger children the sandpaper numbers or letters, and they were just so respectful, and they just felt, you could just see the pride that come up to me and said, I'm going to teach them that lesson now. And the pride that they have in themselves doing this, and the younger children just looked up to them like they were little gods. Yeah, they just, the joy that came from both sides was really beautiful to see. Yeah, and so having that mixed age groups is really, really important. And actually I saw that in my children's school. My daughter came into a classroom when she was 7, and there was this 9-year-old in the class, and she just fell in love with this 9-year-old. She was like, I'm going she wanted to do everything the 9-year-old did, and the 9-year-old just took her under the wing and actually introduced her into the environment. Yeah. No, don't worry about holding me up at all. It's lovely that you're asking questions and commenting. It's great. It's really good to have an interactive presentation, and everyone here has lots of knowledge to share. Thank you. So the next one here is Marie Montessori talked about how children need to have lessons on learning different social cues because they are not born knowing these things. So we need to teach them these. And she came up with it. She classed it grace and courtesy lessons. She made it fun. She didn't make it like, oh, you must do this, but she would do like little role plays with the children of how to say, how to greet each other, how to say please and thank you, wait your turns. And I see this very young. 2-year-olds can definitely learn to wait and take their turns, but it happens naturally. You have to support them. So we have a painting activity in one of our toddlers' classrooms. And of course, there's only one. And having one of each activity is really important because it teaches children that you want to do that activity, but you'll have to learn to wait. So it's learning those skills that are really important for life. Marie Montessori was so ahead of her time that she knew that children need far more than just the teaching of intellectual activities. They needed those social skills of resilience, and having to wait your turn is being resilient. Yeah. So this little boy, there's only one painting activity, so the toddler has to wait. So there's actually 2 aprons. So one of them puts on the apron and they sit on this little chair and they watch their friend. When their friend has cleaned up the activity, then they know it's their turn and they come over. So we are giving them skills to learn how to wait as well, because waiting can be very, very hard, especially when you're a toddler and you see something and you really want to do it. So Marie Montessori also gave lessons on how to close the door quietly, how to speak on the telephone. She taught them life skills that were going to set them up to be confident, resilient members of the community. Yeah. And these daily rituals nurture empathy, self-control, and social connection. So she taught them how to actually, so the mats on the floor, the child has to walk around the mats, not through the mats. So it's teaching the child that we respect each other. We're going to be patient and we're going to respect the others in our community. And then when they grow older, they take this out into the community and they are hopefully respectful and patient with the people that they meet, because this community that they're in is teaching them all these life skills. Yeah. So grace and courtesy lessons are actually the very first lessons that any Montessori classroom should set up before all the other activities as well. Grace and courtesy lessons are the foundation of setting up a Montessori classroom. How to take an activity, how to return it. Yeah. I mean, this develops in the toddler room. They need a lot more support, but definitely in a 3 to 6 classroom, if you don't have those grace and courtesy lessons working well, then the classroom is going to be a little bit turbulent. Yeah. So focusing on the grace and courtesy lessons, I can't go into heaps of it because there's actually lessons, but if you look up on Google, but just be mindful, or read one of Marie Montessori's books on grace and courtesy lessons, they are the foundation for setting up a Montessori classroom for it to run smoothly. Yeah. So that's the one thing that you really focus on, especially at the beginning of the year, are the grace and courtesy lessons. Yeah. So another foundation activity in the classroom is practical life activities. So practical life activities encourage repetition, order, and then meaningful work, and they calm the child's nervous system. So we see here this simple one of washing your hands. Young, very, very young babies, children do this, and just its repetitive movement calms and in Marie Montessori's word, normalizes the child. Yeah. It brings about a sense of calmness, that repetition. of doing an activity over and over again. And that's a bit like, for adult mindfulness, like colouring in, it's that repetition. Practical life activities encourage this as well. They encourage independence, and they allow the child to contribute meaningfully to their environment. So the practical life activities of care of the environment, sweeping, mopping, there's repetition in there, which calms the child, but they're actually contributing to keeping the environment clean. Because remember that the environment belongs to the child, and so that we are teaching them to be responsible for looking after the environment. And when they do this, they feel a sense of accomplishment, that their work is not just playing, it's actually really meaningful and it means something. And young toddlers, they love doing practical life activities. Yeah. So if we see a child that is dysregulated, what key activities we bring the child back is to practical life. Always take them back to a practical life activity. It might be scrubbing the table, or washing their hands, or flower arranging. There's so many different practical life activities, but the key is once we see the child is getting dysregulated, and we want to, if that's safe enough for them to do an activity, practical life activities. So always have that in your mind. Practical life activities is the key to bringing the child back to that normalization as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the adult's role, and then we're going to, I'm just looking ahead, we're going to be talking about behaviour and some examples of some things that could happen in the classroom, something's gone wrong, and how we could handle it as well. Yeah. Jade, did you have something else you wanted to say? I just saw you typing. I can see the chat box there. Don't worry if you don't. So the adult's role is to model and mirror. So the adult it's really, really important that the adult remains calm, consistent, and emotionally available. Yeah. So I know sometimes that can be hard, especially when you're in a classroom, that you may have had a really bad morning, but when you're coming to the classroom, you need to put that aside and try and remain calm and consistent for the children, especially the younger child, because a younger child doesn't understand. If you are looking angry as you pick them up, they think it's them rather than something that's happened before. So being really calm, even in moments where you feel like you're not calm as well. And children absorb the emotional tone from the adults around them. So they're going to pick up in that emotional atmosphere. I remember when like we're humans, we're going to have days, especially when you're parents, where you're not feeling, the calmest that you can be. And the children, my children can pick it up immediately. They just know and can sense what's happening, even without the words. They have a connection and they can pick up that emotional atmosphere in the space. And those of you who are parents, you can probably relate to that. Sometimes you don't even need to say words. It's just maybe it's your body language. They can pick it up. Yeah. And that's all right too, because we're humans and we don't want to hide emotions from children. Yeah. We need to respectfully guide, empathy, and show patience as well. So the children are going to be watching. I haven't put this on the slide, but the interactions that we have with others in the environment, we need to ensure that they're seeing positive interactions, because they are going to be modelling their social interactions on what they are seeing us model in their classroom as well. Yeah. So that's really important. So before we go on to talking about some of the little examples that we're going to discuss, I thought I would put up something about understanding behaviour. And from in general, I think in psychology as well, in some psychology and also in Montessori, all behaviour is communication. And it's really important that what we see, so when children are communicating like crying, pushing, they may be refusing to do something, laughing, withdrawing, throwing, all these are different behaviours. They are not good or bad behaviours, they are just messages. So Maria Montessori said we need to look and observe What are we seeing, and why is this happening? Yeah. We need to shift from reacting and to more understanding what is happening, because underneath the behavior, there is some need that's not being met. Yeah. And maybe the child is like, I love that example. Maybe the child is just absolutely exhausted because they're due for a sleep. Yeah. Or, they're just feeling so emotional because they couldn't get the toy they wanted. Yeah. But we need to look beneath the behavior to find the need. And I love this one as well. Observation comes before correction. We need to observe and see what's happening rather than be reactive and jump in straight away. We need to pause in our own regulation. I mean, of course, if it's going to be extremely dangerous and the child's about to bite someone, you have to step in, or they're about to push someone, or it's going to be extremely dangerous. You need to step in. But stepping in still can look respectful to both parties. Yeah. Like, I have to stop you now because we're not going to, it depends on the age of the child though. Depends on how much detail you're going to get. So that's why we're going to do some of these examples. And if anyone wants to comment on some of these examples when we're doing it, feel free to put your hand up and comment as well. And I love this as well. I was just reading just before I came on as well. I think as Montessori guides, instead of saying, how do I stop this behavior? We need to ask what is the unmet need? Why is this child doing this behavior? Because every behavior has a reason behind it. Yeah. Is it because the child doesn't have the language to communicate that they want that toy, so they have to bite instead? Yeah. And I often say, there's an example we had, we took some of our children out for a nature walk, the babies, and they were sitting, two little ones were sitting next to each other, and one of them kept taking off the other baby. I think they were toddlers then, kept taking off the other baby's hat. And I think the other one became very frustrated. She can't talk, so she just leaned over a bit and it stopped it. She's like, so in her mind, actually, it's not a socially acceptable behavior, but she doesn't know that. She's like, wow, that worked. And the child didn't take the child's hat off anymore. So we have to teach them other ways, but in that moment, the biting served a purpose for her because the other child stopped taking the child's hat off. So every behavior meets it, but we need to support the child in learning other ways that are socially acceptable and are not going to hurt the other child. But in that moment, that was her best choice. Yeah. So we need to be looking at thinking, okay, so this child's choice every time a conflict happens is to throw materials. So in a calmer time, what can we do to support this child in knowing another strategy? Yeah. So that child used the best strategy they could at that time. Yeah. And so as adults, and if we are observers, which is what Montessori taught us to do, observe, we need to think about how can we support this child to choose another strategy next time? Because he or she is choosing the best strategy that they know now. Yeah. And we need to teach the child other ways, but in respectful, loving ways, because the child is never doing it to cause mischief. They're never doing it because they want to give us a hard time. The child is just reacting in the moment, because children live in the moment. They don't think, so I'm going to do this and then this is going to make someone really angry. They don't think that in that moment. I'm talking about very young children here as well. Yeah. Yeah. They're not thinking in that moment, this is going to make this person's life difficult. They're just reacting in that moment. So that's a really important skill thing to think about as well. Yeah. So let's go on. Oh, great. Yeah, great. You like that one? Is a big biting is a big challenge with toddlers. Yeah. And sometimes with toddlers, it's also a sensory thing. They bite and they can feel like, wow, that's amazing. I love that. I love that feeling, that sensory feeling in my mouth as well. And sometimes they're also teething. So there's many different things that are happening, and we need to observe rather than jump in, because sometimes when we jump in, we are reacting. Yeah. So we need to step back and not react. So but that's easier said than done sometimes, isn't it? Especially if you're coming from a place of not regulated as well. Yeah. So let's have a discussion. So here are some examples that I've got up here. So a child throws a block or knocks over another child's work. So how we respond to this can have an effect on the child's social and emotional. We want the children to feel, not to feel shame about what they've done, because in that moment, maybe the child wanted that block. They've been waiting for a long time and they felt that's it. Or they may want to interact with the other child, and that's their way of interacting. So we need to pause. So our response could look something like this: pause and observe, no instant reaction. Get down to the child's level, because there's nothing really like dangerous. The throwing the block, it depends on where the child throws it. But if just throws it gently on the mat, if the child's about to throw it across the classroom, we need to definitely step in very quickly. Yeah. But we can pause, observe, get down to the child's level and say calmly, I see you through the block. Identify this part here we may not be able to do straight away, but what are they trying to communicate with this? And over time, if this is a pattern of behaviour, we may be able to pick up what the need is. Why is this child doing this? Then we need to redirect. So we tell them blocks are for building. If you want to throw, we can throw bean bags into a basket, and ask them to help clean it up as well. And then maintain a calm tone. So behaviour is a message, and it's not mischief. The behaviour is a message. What is their behaviour trying to tell us? That's really important. Yeah, and we need to realise what the message is, and then support the child to choose a different behaviour next time, but not in this moment. So if the child is dysregulated, we don't do the teaching now. We do the teaching in a different space. Yeah. And that's why Marie Montessori did grace and courtesy. So let's go on. So another example is an 18-month-old cries and clings to you, and you try to place them on the floor with activities. So this could be the parent, or you have a child in your space as an educator and they don't want to be down on the floor. Yeah, it's important that they go down on the floor. Yeah, I mean, not all the time, but they've had their cuddle, and now it's down on the floor, and they're going to interact with materials. So one of your response could look something like this: see the need behind the behaviour. Are they looking for security, connection, or is it a transition period, transition from the parent to the centre? Offer closeness at first. So you get down on the floor, you can sit with me for a moment. So you're acknowledging that they need you. So you're sitting down on the space and you're acknowledging that those feelings are really important, because all feelings, sad, happy, they're all really valid for the child in that moment. So we can invite participation gently, like, would you like to help me carry this tray to the mat? Or you could start working with materials like blocks or some other Montessori material. Provide a familiar or purposeful task rather than forcing separation. And when the need is met, the independence will follow. So when the child feels, oh, actually being down on the floor and helping choose this activity, actually, I feel safe. So then I'm going to move away. Yeah. So making that connection with the child, setting them up. So we're not going to be walking around carrying the child. Yeah, because we can't do that. And the child, once they feel safe, will feel empowered, and we want the child to feel empowered. Yeah. But we're not going to just put them on the floor and move away. So we're actually going to transition them and build that trust and engage them in work. And Marie Montessori talked about how to support children's regulation. She didn't use regulation in those days, but she talked about that, moving them, engaging them in work. That is how the child feels that safety. They engage in work, their hand is moving, and then their nervous system calms down. Another example is, let's have a look. a child keeps tipping their cup of water over at the table. So we observe before stopping the behavior. Is this experimentation? Is it a sensory interest? They're needing limits. Maybe they've never had experience with a cup before, and they don't know that it's going to break. They might be experimenting. So instead of saying no, stop that, you might respond with, you're curious about the water, because they're not doing it because they're trying to cause trouble. They're doing it because they're interested or they've not experienced this before. So you're curious about the water. Let's pour it in the bowl, or you could say water stays in the cup. If you're finished, you can place it on the tray. So we're giving them other alternatives. We're not abandoning them and just saying, okay, you can just tip water over the place because you're free to do what you want. No, we're setting some limits, but we're setting it with kindness and respect for the child. We understand that they want to play with the water. So then we can model and show another practical life activities where they can actually engage with water. So we might show them a sponge activity where they can actually squeeze the sponge and transfer the water that way. Or it might be a pouring activity. So we're showing the child that it is fabulous that you want to experiment with pouring water, but we're not going to do it with our glass because our glass is for drinking out of. So we're giving them alternatives. We're supporting them. We're not abandoning them, nor are we just letting them do what they want to do in that moment. So we're acting as guides and role models, and we're supporting the child in that moment. We're giving them alternatives. Yeah. And we're not saying, no, that's bad or anything like that. So we're actually showing them that what you're doing is you're just being curious. Another one that often, oh, I just realized, very sorry, I have to connect I just have to, sorry, doing this in the middle of the thing. My battery on my computer is about to die. So we'll just do a little connection so that you can actually see. Oh, never happened before. We're very full. Okay. For that, nearly technical issues going on. I'll be back. So this is something that often would probably happen in the home or in the centre that the child doesn't want to pack away. Yeah. So we could have a gentle reminder, not a command. So we're getting down to the child and say, I see that, you're finding it hard. I haven't put that in here, but I see that you're finding it actually hard, or you're feeling like you don't want to pack away. So we're connecting with the child. We're getting down to the level and showing them that, yeah, we're here for you. We can see this is hard, but we're still going to follow through with packing away. We're still going to do it. So when we finish our work, we return it so someone else can use it. Yeah. Offer a choice. Would you like to put the cards away first or the box? So you're giving them choices. So they're going to have to pack away, but which one you pack away first? Yeah. Often I do this with toddlers. They say, no. I say, okay, well, I'll do the bowl and you can do, which one would you like to do, the bowl or the scrub brush? And they love it. They feel like, oh, I'm empowered. I'm going to choose the first one. And they want to do this. So you can also model what it looks like to pack away as well. So sometimes with the young toddlers and of course the babies, we have to model packing away. And we actually have to model packing away with joy. They actually have to see that packing away is a joyful thing to do. Yeah, definitely, Jane. Modeling packing away is definitely the best way. They actually have to see that packing away is a fun thing to do. Yeah, it's not a chore. Yeah. And then if it's ongoing, then you may do some grace and courtesy lessons on packing away and how to look after the environment. Yeah. Often I say, oh, and I watched the toddlers at my centre today. They brought out some of in the afternoon, they sometimes have extra materials like blocks and trucks. And the educators brought out the containers and the toddlers just swooped and they just started packing away. They loved it. They packed away all the activities. They put the lid on and then they actually pushed and carried together the boxes back in. So those toddlers loved packing up. The minute the educators didn't even have to say anything. They just brought the boxes in They just brought the boxes in and the children knew what to do, because this is a pattern and an expectation. Having expectation as well is a very important thing. We expect that we're going to pack away, and the adults have that expectation. This is what's going to happen. And yes, you can feel really sad about it and you can be really angry about it, but we're still going to do it anyway. So we're not dismissing their emotions, but we're saying there are things that we need to do in life and we can be angry about them. That's fine. But we're still going to pack away and I'm going to be there to help you. Yeah. So that was all for today, but this is just, I'll just put up a reflection, and then if there's any questions, we can take some questions as well. So if you want to reflect later on, go back to the presentation, and then what will you take away from today? So that important part, connection. Connect with the child before you correct as well. Get down to their level, connect with them, show them that, yeah, for example, if a child's pushing another child to get through the gate, I see that you are so keen to go outside into the playground, but I'm not going to let you push your friends. So we'll just move to this space where you're not touching your friend's body. But I see that you're so excited to get out there, but I can't let you push your friend. Yeah. So we're getting down, we're connecting them with them, and we're acknowledging them. We're acknowledging what they're doing right that moment is important to them. Yeah. Observation reveals the need beneath the behavior. So we need to be observing what is happening, what happened before that child went into that behavior. Yeah. Sometimes the toddlers, babies, they're hungry, they're tired. We need to look at those things as well. We talked about preparing the environment, and that supports emotional safety and independence. So setting up a really beautiful environment that has order and structure in it. And practical life activities build confidence, regulation. And the last one as well, children borrow the adult's calm to regulate their own. To regulate their own. So the children are going to be looking and watching how we're regulating our emotions. How are we dealing with tricky problems? Yeah. And they're going to be modeling it off us as well. Yeah. So are there any questions that I see, Jay, you love the concept of grace and courtesy. So Karthik, if people want to speak, are we able to take the mic so people can speak if they would like?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, is there anyone that would like to speak with the mic off, or you just want to type in the chat box if there is any questions? See you later, everyone.